I read The Wonderling in preparing.
Oh,
I had to. I reread The Memory
uh,
Palace and I read The Wonderling, and
uh,
I found Arthur to be endearing. I thought he was kind and innocent, and I really enjoyed your illustrations in both
oh,
books.
thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I loved them, and I saw the kindness in Arthur. I don't know if I'm perhaps reading into this wrong, but I know that Arthur had a lot of odds stacked against him, and I wonder, Mira, did you draw some inspiration from your mum when you created Arthur?
Well, The Wonderling is a much more of an autobiography than The Memory Palace.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
Arthur's a lot, I would say Arthur was a lot like me. I feel like The Memory Palace is really a love letter to a very ill mother, but it's really a love letter to her. And it's really about that connection and that, unbreakable bond between mother and child, mother and daughter in particular. The Wonderling it's more about cultivating the gifts you have, but also it's really about friendship. In book two, the friendship between these three characters is really developed even more. My editor, she was very, very busy. She runs the publishing house too. So she had my book two for about a year before she was able to send it back, the edits back to me. And during that time, I started two other books. And I realized just about everything I write, there's some oppressive force and there's some character who's breaking out of that. In the Wonderling, it's this horrible sort of Victorian England kind of
Yeah.
orphanage, very Dickensian.
Yes.
And through his friendship with this little bird creature, they're able to escape. But there's still this oppressive society that they have to sort of deal with, and that becomes more intense in book two. But the two books I started, one, it's about this girl who is raised in a castle. She's raised in the dark, and she's raised by a false mother who is training her to be a thief and is training her to be able to see in the dark so she could do her bidding.
Ooh.
And eventually she of course makes a friend, and she eventually learns what it's like to be in the light of the day, and it's a very much a fairy tale. But the other book, so it's yet another character who's sort of breaking out of some kind of oppressive force. And then the other book really is loosely based, or it's inspired by a true story. And I started it years ago, and I'll go back to it when I get through with this book. And it's about this Jewish boy who, in my book, it's this girl who is the Sami girl. Sami used to be called the Laplanders. They live in northern Scandinavia, and I lived in the Arctic, above the Arctic Circle for a while. And it's set in that place, and it's this girl who helps this boy get across from northern Norway to Sweden during the Nazi invasion of Norway during World War II. And parts of it are based on a true story. But it opens with this boy. This part is part of the true story of this man I knew. He was supposed to be on a boat. The next day, he was supposed to be shipped off to Auschwitz with the rest of his family. And he was in a prison cell in Oslo. And this prison guard, Norwegian, but not a Nazi, was anti-Nazi, opened the prison cell, handed him a Bible, and said, "Go, go, go, go." And he took off, and he somehow got on a train, somehow stole skis. He had this incredible adventure. This guy was amazing. He was hidden by doctors and nurses in a morgue for 2 years before he then got went further north. And my book opens when this boy is in a morgue, and he's drawing in his sketchbook, and once again he's in this confined space, and he's surrounded by this oppressive society, but he has this hopeful creative heart. And so in this book he draws pictures to create this world. And the girl is oppressed by her family, and she is telling stories, and eventually eventually they do this together. So, it's, I think I pretty much write the same book over and over again, just in different ways. Really, it's all about hope. It's really all about,
Right.
having agency to fight those, whatever oppression you're feeling, whether it's family, whether it's government, whether it's, right-wing fanaticism or fanaticism of any kind. I think it's important to have hope and to give hope to others. And you do that through music. I mean, I've watched you sing. I've seen the audiences go crazy. I mean, really, that's why we're here, really.
Right. And that's why I loved the Wonderling, because I could feel that as the chapters would progress, he was becoming braver and he was pushing outside of the initial kind of limits that he had, and he was getting more confidence, and Trinket was such an important part in everything. She started to open up another perception of the world and of himself. And that is something that we all kind of go through as well, thinking, okay, in the beginning, maybe you consider that you're not enough, or that your place in the world isn't as significant. And as time goes on, you become a little more courageous and do maybe take a step outside of the box. And I felt for Arthur as well, because he was so innocent and kind, and had so many things happen to him, when he was just trying to find his home. And then he didn't even understand that he was placed in this house to steal from the house. He really didn't connect it, the innocence of it. And I'm like going, no. And it's also kind of understanding and seeing the diversity of people in the world. There are people who are evil as well, and you've got to ride with everything the best way that you can. You're constantly reacting off just situations and people. And when Trinket finds him, I'm like, oh yes, thank God. Like, because I thought this cannot end with something tragic happening to Arthur. I mean, it has to end in a positive way for him. And I loved it.
Oh, thank you. Well, wait till you read book 2, because Miss Carbuncle, who
Yeah.
is the villainess, she goes through a lot and she ends up falling in love.
Oh my God. Wow, this is
That's
like,
a spoiler alert. Spoiler
it
alert.
is. Oh my God.
She goes through a bit of a transformation. She's still Miss Carbuncle. She still has a lot of opinions. She still loves acronyms and has a lot of rules, but her heart slowly begins to grow when she meets he is a French illusionist who runs a sort of a magic circus with it's a lot happens in book 2.
I can't wait. When is it coming out?
Oh gosh, it was due like 2019 or something, and then I had that brain injury in 2018, so I got I had to relearn. I had a lot of problems reading and writing for another couple of years. So right now, as we speak, I'm working on what I hope is the final rewrite, and then it'll go through, the line edit and copy editing, and I have to do all the final illustrations. I have done some, a bunch of sketches. It'll probably come out probably late next year or early 2024. And as far as the movie, I don't know. Right now, the studio that was going to, do the movie was bought by Disney, and Disney owns the rights now. But I don't know. I think they're waiting for the second book to see if they want to do it. My contract runs out in 2024, so when this book will come out. So either Disney will do the movie, my old studio that I'm still in touch with, they're now at Sony, they'll buy it back, or nobody will make the movie. I just don't know. I hope it's made into a movie. There's a great director attached to it, Stephen Daldry, who did Billy Elliot, he did The Hours, he did the early episodes of The Crown, early seasons of The Crown. We'll see,
Wow.
I hope it becomes a movie. I think it would be awesome. But
I
you
know.
know, the movie business is wackadoodle, so who knows? I don't know.
Hackadoodle. Mira, for my final question, if you could sum up the importance of support for children of schizophrenic parents, what would your message be?
Oh gosh. Get it any way you can. If you're a child or you're a you're a young adult and you're living with this struggle, and the social services are not great, seek out people who are going through the same thing. There are support groups everywhere. And now, as awful as social media is sometimes, and awful as the internet spreading horrible misinformation and all sorts of things, it also affords the opportunity to, if you can't find somebody locally, you can find, free therapists, people who work on a pro bono, or there are support groups online. And know you're not alone. That's the thing, is that you often feel like you're the only one dealing with this and you're ashamed of it.
Yes.
And I'll say, when I did a big event, it was a benefit for the shelter. It was in a big synagogue or church. I can't remember. I think it was in a synagogue. There are 400 or 500 people in the audience. And I said, okay, everyone close their eyes. Now, while your eyes are closed, raise your hand if you have anyone in your family or anyone close to you who suffers from mental illness. And I said, now open your eyes. Not a hand was down. Every hand was up in that audience. And I've done that several times since then. There is help out there. And if you're a kid and you can't find it in your school, seek it out online, seek it out with your friends. Don't and if you're an adult, some people don't deal with this until
Right.
they're way, way, way into, their 20s, 30s, even 40s. They just carry it as a heavy burden. The burden doesn't have to be all your burden.
Right.
You can share the burden with others, and it really does help. I wish I had shared it with more people when I was younger. But it was the time I grew up in.
Right.
If it were now, I would have shared it with certain friends.
Right.
But
Seek
so
out support.
everyone needs a trinket.
Yes.
Empathy is not saying, "Oh, we all have problems. Oh, we're all like that," or everyone, or we all get that way once in a while, or buck up. True empathy is just sitting with somebody and listening, and letting them tell you their story and saying, "I'm here
Yeah,
and I'm listening to you,
exactly.
and
Exactly.
I'll be here."
Right. I feel so grateful for this opportunity to speak to you.
I do too.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much, Sandra.
much.
Good luck with your mom. I
Yeah.
hope that she gets good help, and I hope that she gets back on, her
Yeah.
meds. And has there been any improvement?
Yes, definitely. So, from the time when she decided, and she was very adamant, she said, "No, I'm not taking any medication, and you guys cannot force me, and I don't want to hear a word of it." And that's that. And she usually blows up, so you avoid talking about the subject. And then she was having other health issues that were concerning us. So my brother decided, and I said, "Look, this is the best thing. You need to call the social services again. They know that she's refused to take medication," and told them about the other health issues. And she was taken to the general hospital first to attend to her physical health. And then she got so much better, and was very angry with my brother. Got better physically, but mentally she was still being very spiteful and angry with my brother because she blamed him
Yeah.
for her hospitalization. And then at the same time, we were talking about trying to get some sort of a conservatorship or guardianship over my mum so that she couldn't decide whether she had needed the medicine or not. I think that kind of ruled in our favor. So she's doing so much better. And the way that I know this is because she actually wants to talk to me on the phone. She's like really bubbly, Sandra, what's going on? And so I told Alex, yeah, I think she's doing much better, but she's also very entertained because at the hospital they have so many activities for her, drawing and sports and so many things that keep her busy, which is, I think, also an important part of this whole process.
Yeah.
In mental health, being busy. And she loves to draw and color in, like she has her coloring books. And she's like, oh, and they feed me amazing food. So now it's like, and they're so kind to my mom. Like my brother was saying that he was so, like, we knew that the social services, the medical services for the mentally ill is very good since I was a child. But at this point, it was just amazing the way that they have treated her with such kindness. They really pamper her. What would you like to eat? And, because we're a family who we've always enjoyed good food, and that's a connecting part in our family.
Right.
I'm like, well, tell me what they've given you, like in meals. And she's like, well, I get to choose. And it might sound insignificant, but all of these little details have allowed my mum to stabilize. So she is with medication again. And because she wasn't off for very, very long, it's the medication has been able to help her much faster than in previous years. So, and I really thank you for asking. She's going to be there for maybe about 2 more months and 2 more weeks. And she'll be home, and that's the challenge, because when she's home, she's in her space, and then it's like, well, you know what, you and your sister can't tell me what to do, and I don't want these people in my home, and get them the hell out. But I think now, because there were 3 options. One was, I think, being her legal guardian, where my brother was actually in charge of her finances and her medication. That is important, because with the things that were happening with my mum's health, she decided not to pay for the telephone anymore. So she doesn't have a landline, and she's adamant about not having a landline. And I always try and rationalize, hey, but I live in another country. If there was an emergency, I can't get a hold of you. Doesn't want a mobile, those sorts of things.
So she doesn't have a phone at all?
So now she has a mobile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's not a smartphone. So she doesn't have internet, doesn't want internet. So it's very tough, because things that are very basic to me, I can't be without the internet at home. For my mum, is just an absolute no, and you're fighting with me, and that sort of thing. And then the second option for kind of some sort of a legal guardian was passing over her medical decisions to my brother. And I think we were able to achieve that. And the day that everything was decided, my brother said, he was at school and he had to take a break. And he said, this is serious stuff. I mean, mum had a lawyer, she had her interpreter, we had a lawyer, and it was the nurses plus the social workers, the psychiatrists. It was serious stuff, but they've ruled in our favor. And I thought,
good.
Because when you're talking about somebody who's elderly, that in itself is worrisome. But then when you add that next level complication, which is the mental illness.
My mom, we couldn't get a guardian for my mom. They just said she can write a check and she can buy cigarettes. Those are the 2 things they said. I mean, it was horrible, so horrible. But 2 things that really helped me. One, when people I know are dealing with a mentally ill teen or parent, always important to remember, like, one thing when I was younger, I would say, my mother would say something that was so fantastical, and I would be like, oh, come on, like, is that come on, you're telling me that that hot dog you found on the floor is from an alien? I mean, think about it. You have to understand that they believe that thing in that moment. They believe it, and know that they believe it. And the other thing is that this idea of having agency, which is a huge, huge problem with not taking meds, or not thinking they need the meds, and not thinking they need any kind of social service or anything. Years down the road, I figured out a slightly better way to deal with her, which was to turn things into questions. So I hear that you think that that is from an alien. Why don't we put that away? Let's get rid of it, and let's focus on something else. Like just try to shift that kind of craziness that's happening. It's very hard to do when someone's ranting and raving or something. I read this book. I'll try to find the title for you, but it actually it had to do with, I think, more depression, when you had a parent who was dealing with depression, and how to talk to them about getting help. And I thought they gave great advice, because they gave you certain questions to ask, and a certain approach, rather than you're taking your medication or I'm out of here. I mean, get, and it's really hard to not get to that point where you're just like, they've got to take the medication, or they're going to do something horrible. They're going to buy a gun. They're going to stab somebody. They're going to go run in the street naked. Like, you just don't know what they're going to do. But you have to really dig in and find that calm place inside yourself, and find ways to give them a sense of agency. Well, I love you. I'd like to see you feel better. I'd like you to take medication. So if you're not, like, is there something, I don't know what questions I can't think of the kinds of questions this woman wrote about in this book, but I found them really helpful, particularly when my husband's mother, who's passed away, was dealing with depression. And we were trying to find ways in which she would sort of accept more professional help, because she was clearly severely depressed. And she was really only taking, I think, anti-anxiety to help with anxiety, but it was much deeper than that. She needed something more. So if I can find that book, I'll send it to you. I don't know if I'll be able to, but anyway.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mira. And now that we've finished, I'm just going to fan out, because I admire you so much. This is a dream come true for me to be able to talk to you. I was fanning out from the beginning, but I didn't want to be like,
hard to imagine anyone fanning out with me, but
I truly am. The whole conversation, this whole Zoom talk has been amazing, and I've just been really accelerated inside. Thank you so much.
Your standards are pretty low.
No. I tell you, the Memory Palace impacted me so deeply, and I've recommended it to everyone.
Thank you for doing that. I can't believe it's still in print, but it's, go figure.
It's amazing that because of your courage, you can touch other people, because it takes courage to share such painful, intimate parts of your story and release it to the world. But that's when you understand that we also need that, because like you mentioned before, most of the time you feel completely isolated, and that it's only you. And then when you mention just simple things like the pacing and the suspicious darting eyes, and I was like, that's my story as well, So it's so important to share, but with
pass it on. Yeah.
And pass it on. Yeah. So I thank you.
Oh, of course. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
It's been lovely to connect with you.
yes.
So.